All right, again, thank you everyone for being here. We'll go ahead and get started. We just wanted to make sure we can give folks an update on what is going on with our current issue with our water plant. So for that update, I'm going to turn over to Director King so that he can get a little more into details about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Giving you an update on the current status of the boil advisory that the city finds itself under. The way that we are eventually released from this is a decision made by KDHE, who's protecting the population's health. And in order to do that, we need to do sampling of our water in different places, 180 different places in our system, and then put that water in incubation for 24 hours. And the test has to be negative, meaning no bacteria present. That is, the samples were collected last night. It took as late as 11:45 last night. The reason why it took longer than expected was we wanted to make sure that all the samples were good and properly collected samples, and it just took us longer. We had to do some flushing of our system in certain areas to accomplish that. So it wasn't completed as early as possible, which puts our calendar or our schedule then for midnight tonight for us to finally get the results of those tests, to submit those to KDHE. They'll review them, and then they'll use that information to make their determination on whether to lift the boil order for the city. So that's where we're at right now. We have a high level of confidence that those tests were collected properly, and so we have to wait to the 24 hours to see what those results actually are and how KDHE will interpret them. We have a meeting scheduled with KDHE at midnight tonight to provide them with the test results so that they can make the decision, and they should be able to make their decision right there on the meeting that we're going to be having with them. Our wholesale customers, they're on a different schedule for their boil advisory. They have to collect samples as well and to do the same sort of a test that I've described here. In order for us to help them, the city has reached out to those different customers and offered to collect samples under their direction, to transport them, and to actually do the tests in our lab. So we're trying to facilitate as best we can our wholesale customers to get out from underneath their wholesale or their boil advisory. There is an area in the city that was where the boil order was rescinded, an area in the northeast portion of the city. The reason why that happened was we looked really long and hard at our entire system to see if there were places that we could isolate the system from the rest of our water and still provide service. And so the only place that we found that really worked well for that and that we could convince KDHE that that was viable was that small section up in the northern part of the city. We could isolate it. We have underground storage to provide water while it's isolated, and KDHE worked with us to rescind for that particular area. They're good partners. They're working with us to try to lessen the impact to as many people as possible. We continue to look for opportunities like that to help our customers and our wholesale customers. What I can tell you is the Rural Water District 1 gets its water exclusively from that same area where it was rescinded. So we've got a request into KDHE, and we hope that we'll have the boil order for Rural 1 lifted as well. We are looking at ways that we can improve our notification. We have ways like talking to you folks to get the word out, but we want to look to see if there's other ways that we can enhance that reaction. There's some efforts underway with our website, and is Jim Jonas here? If you have some questions, or Jim, if you want to comment, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with you, about the enhancements to our system.
Yeah, basically, and we're in the discussion with this now, is frankly not just to do with water, but over any type of crisis situation. How can we do a better job of getting the word out when it comes to letting Wichitans know what's happening? It turns out we have about 11 different databases when it comes to emails and information, and one of the things we want to do is modernize that, and Jim and his staff are going to lead that effort moving forward. But over the last 2 years, frankly, we've had multiple different types of crisis, if you will, not just with COVID, with water, but with other types just stuff happening in the type of world we're in right now. So what can we do as a city to get this information out quicker, faster, and better while working with our friends in the media to get that information out? So this actually correlates, and this is a little bit off topic, correlates with updating our website and the back end of our website that Jim has been working on so that we can provide better services. And Jim, if you want to add anything I might have missed.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Jonas, I'm the Director of Communications for the City of Wichita. As the Mayor said, we are working on ways that we can always improve that access to our residents and make sure that they're aware of whatever timely issue is on hand that we need to be able to get the word out. So we want to take currently an all of the above approach, working with our partners in the county, working with anyone in the community who can help us get the word out to our residents is important. But as the Mayor touched on, we're working towards a revised, updated, better website that will build in some of these capabilities with text and email so that we'll be able to get those communications out to residents immediately. So stay tuned, that's coming. Unfortunately, issues like this that come up really raise the need and urgency for us to do that, and it is moving ahead, and it's not ready yet, but we know that when we have these kinds of events, it's important to have that. So we'll let you know as that comes along.
And before we go to questions, I do just want to thank our staff who will be working around the clock to make sure that we're back to 100% as quick as possible. I do want to thank our staff for taking that extra time needed to ensure that our samples were correct. Frankly, if those samples came back and they weren't done well, then we could actually have this extended even longer. And I also want to thank the people of Wichita for bearing with us when it comes to the inconvenience of boiling water and what this leads to. The fact is, the city of Wichita, we're the largest source of water when it comes to providing water to the public in the entire state. It's important that we keep the integrity of our water supply at a top level and that people feel confident in our process. And because of that, we also have a really great team who can identify when stuff like this happens and who are both accountable by bringing this forward and making sure that we stay that we have that the ability to get this information out. One of the things we learned about this particular situation is that it wasn't an obvious break. It wasn't an obvious what happened when the particles broke off the filter. It wasn't really obvious. You needed really well-trained people to notice what was going on, and also it was self-reported. So you also need people who aren't just going to be transparent with what's happening, but also accountable. Who are willing to call Alan, to go through this process in which we can actually, although it's incredibly inconvenient, have this type of order put in place to err on the side of safety for our citizens. Because even if these tests come back and they were fine and no one was at risk, even like last time that's what happened, we were able to actually show that the test came back okay and our system was okay during that time. Even if that comes back that way, we have to make sure that we put the safety of our folks, because if one person gets sick, then that's one person too many, particularly when it comes to the type of organization and type of quality we want as a city. So I do want to thank staff for not just the work that they've done over the last couple of days, but really they're going to be up all night having meetings at 12 a.m. To make sure that, and they'll, however the result of that meeting, they will be up, taking on the next steps that follow from that meeting. So I want to thank staff ahead of time, not only for being, for handling the situation, but also for stepping up and stepping out when something didn't look right, so that we could actually be accountable and transparent with what's happening. So with that, Matt, you keep doing this, which I don't know if you got an itch or if you got a question.
Last October, the county's emergency management director complained that the department was behind the curve and receiving information from the city about the break and advisory Did the city of Public Works handle things any differently this time specifically? What did you tell Sedgwick County Emergency Management and when? Because again, there was no sort of notification or alert that went out directly. I know that there was discussion about a civics system that they had and how that could have been deployed last time. I don't know if progress has been made there, but specifically what did the city communicate to county emergency?
So we're never in a crisis in which the county isn't after the crisis complaining about the city for something. But to get to your specific question, let me go ahead and ask Alan how that went down.
We did contact the county emergency operations very early in the process. We did a better job of getting them in the loop, and we have Julie here from the county EOC who is responsible for that. And I think what she would report, with the mayor's permission, is that this worked the way it should have worked. Julie?
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you, Mayor. Julie Stimson, Sedgwick County Emergency Management Director. Yes, the notifications came in a very timely manner, exactly what we would hoped. I was able to alert some of our key partners just to give them a warning too on what to do with this, that this water advisory was coming. So yeah, it worked very, very well this time. I have no negative comments about that. So.
Have you worked at all towards deploying that civics ready system that you talked about last October?
Yes, actually, ironically, this morning we are building that platform. It just takes time to build, and we were just on the phone with them this morning, working with our vendor to build that platform. We're still going to be a few months out before that's ready to go live, but that is certainly something that we are focused on, having meetings with our vendor and creating that platform for the public to sign up to receive those emergency notifications that they want to be notified of. So they just definitely come in. It just takes a little bit of time to build those platforms up. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, when I made that comment, I didn't know we had someone from the county actually in the room, so I apologize. Just, anyways, and I mean that kind of joking, but we work with the county, the best we can to get through, and then we hold each other accountable. So we want to continue that relationship.
Has the city heard any reports of people hoarding water at this point?
So just the reports, I think, from the media, and where I did something, I don't know if it was one of Matthew's articles, but it was about stores running out of water. We talked about this in the past where really I'm drinking boiled water. Like, you just have to boil your water for a couple minutes and it's fine. And we're talking about, less than 2 days worth of a watch here. We are just waiting on test results to come back, and there is a specific timeline on those test results. So it's not, I think, to the situation in which people really have to worry about having access to water. However, we understand, been going through this before, we understand not just with water, but with other crises, people do kind of make a rush, whether it's bottled water or toilet paper or whatever it is. And we just want to encourage people to know that, to be courteous of others in our community who also will be purchasing water to just in case in the next few days. So we obviously want to discourage hoarding or that type of behavior. But overall, I think Wichitans get it. One of the things I've learned about this job when it comes to going through any type of crisis is Wichitans are the first to help out other Wichitans. We as a community are very strong when it comes to getting through and persevering through tough times. And so I think that we hear reports and it might get on the media, but I do think that overall Wichitans are pretty courteous, and if they are buying extra, they wind up donating it to United Way or donate it to neighbors who might not be able to get out. And that's usually been our experience during different types of crises throughout the last few years.
Alan, you mentioned wholesale customers, referring to the outlying communities that receive their water from the city of Wichita. Could you give us again a list of those wholesale customers that were affected?
I can provide you with the names. I don't have them with me at this moment. I believe it's actually in the press release, or at least one of them that has been released. Not all wholesale customers that we have are affected in this way. Some of them were exempt, and the reason for that is Early on, we got in touch with them, with KDHE, got in touch with them to see if there was an alternate source of water than the city's water. And for those that had an alternate source, they went ahead and shut off their supply from the city and went to that alternate source, which exempted them from the boil advisory. There are some, however, that continue to be dependent solely on the city's water, and they have the boil advisory. And like I said earlier, we're trying to find out ways to help as many of our customers as we can. And we hope that with the recent discussions with KDHE, we can exempt Rural Water District 1, which is one of those customers, because they feed off of that area exclusively in the northeast part of town. That was the order was rescinded.
Alan, following what Kevin asked, roughly any idea how many residents are affected by this?
Well, I mean, if you look at the service area, not just the city's population, but the other rural areas, we're closing in on somewhere around 500,000 people total when you're talking about water service customers. So, like the mayor was saying earlier, we are the largest water provider in the state, and so that's the reason why you have the kind of staff that you do have, with the kind of culture that they have, which is to be very careful with that water supply.
Trying to understand specifically what about the city's water infrastructure made it possible to get the order rescinded for that portion of northeast Wichita and nowhere else. Would that be quality of the infrastructure, just the placement of where it's at, and then also if you could explain just briefly what is the size of that area? Could you give people an idea?
Yeah, it's from 21st to 53rd, from Rock to Webb, that rectangle basically. And the reason for that area being able to receive the rescission of the order was purely hydraulic. We were able to isolate that system from the rest of the system. It's fed by pump stations. We just shut the pump stations off so that they aren't introducing new water into the area. But it's not enough to simply shut the area off. You have to provide water in the meantime, and we happen to have storage in that particular area in big underground water tanks that can feed that for a couple of days. And so that the combination of being able to isolate it and still provide service was unique to that area. We don't have that kind of condition elsewhere. We looked really hard to see if we could replicate that, but that was the only one that really met the KDHE requirements for rescission.
Have you learned anything more that you explained about the actual rate or what went wrong with the filter in question?
Yeah, we continue to look at that. First of all, it's everything has been corrected. All the water that's being produced right now is fully meets all requirements and is safe. So we've corrected it. The problem was we have these big filters. They're like great big swimming pools that have sand and anthracite, like coal particles, that filters the water. And those filters sometimes have to be backwashed and cleaned in order to remain in service. And after so many cleanings, eventually you have to replace that filter media. And the only way that we know that that's the case is we fully drain a particular filter that we have in question and sample the media. When we did that, the flow from emptying that filter into our system was too great. We could have throttled it down. We've done it at that rate before. We've done this hundreds and hundreds of times before. But in this particular case, when we drained it down, it had a high level of organic material or filtered material in it, which made the water kind of cloudy. And so that's why, even though it happened in a very short period of time, it only took a couple of minutes for the cloudiness to get to the level that we were concerned about. Staff looked at that and said, you know, this is something that we need to be concerned about. They reported it to KDHE, and KDHE worked with us to come up with the plan that we have in place right now. I'd like to echo what the mayor said, which is the culture that we have in the staff that runs our water treatment plant facilities. That's the way that they think. First and foremost is the safety of our customers, our water users, and even to our hurt, they will report situations that they think are of a concern, and that's what happened this time.
All right, further questions?
I'm curious, and maybe this was discussed yesterday, as far as swimming pools and splash pads, are they affected by this?
We
Yeah, we actually have Troy, who's our director in this area, and could probably address the question a lot better than I could.
So we did so just an abundance of being cautious. So we wanted to make sure that everybody felt safe. So we actually closed the splash pads in the pools last night upon hearing the information. And after consulting with Alan, we're expecting that we should be able to open up tomorrow. So we'll be getting positive reports, hopefully, and we'll be right back on track.
Not water to drink, whether or not we're under a boil advisory.
I'm sorry?
Splash pads, pool water, not to be drink, whether or not. we're
Still don't drink
Yeah.
from the splash
Yeah.
pads.
Right.
No matter,
Yeah.
no matter what Alan says, don't drink from the splash
Yeah.
pads.
Yeah, yeah. For people who might not, I did a lot of reporting on splash pads.
Okay.
Well, you and I should get together and talk about splash pads. Okay. All right.
Further questions for Troy? Yeah, for those who didn't hear that, please don't drink from our pools or splash pads. All right, further questions? Again, thanks a lot to folks who are following us, but particularly to folks who are helping us get the word out. If you're someone who's watching this and you have a neighbor or someone in your family who might not be online, might not know about this boil order, again, we ask that please reach out to them. Let them know that out of abundance of caution, we are under a boil order. We want to make sure that, although we're confident that our samples will come back okay, we want to make sure that everyone stays as safe as possible moving forward until those samples come back, we get that confirmation. So we're asking not just our media friends, but also friends in the public to reach out to folks who might not know so we can get that information out as quick and as far as possible. Thank you all.